we are not just discussing problems, I hope. We are actually here also to talk about solutions and to figure out how we can collaborate across borders and industries to create sustainable future for the Arctic. And it's about finding practical ways forward and understanding that every little bit helps. And I would like to put the first question to Antje. As a prominent scientist and leading one of the world leaders when it comes to climate science and especially the Central Arctic Ocean and Alfred Wegener Institute, you have made magic with Polarstern, I must say. I've also been happy to be on board during a winter expedition to Antarctica at the Weddell Sea some 10 years ago. So, Antje, when it comes to climate science, what can actually continental Europe do for the Arctic?
I find it really important that Europe builds a strategy towards the cryosphere, towards the ice, be it the Arctic, but also the Antarctic. That we collaborate together by sharing knowledge, sharing infrastructure, and that Europe stands to the rest of the world for a continent whose action is based on scientific facts, on the best available scientific knowledge. And that is a continuous struggle. Just think, in these times, Europe has stepped back for deciding a law that is badly needed, the EU restoration law. Why? Because there is some fake news making the rounds that it's in times of war, it's all about nutrition, about security of nutrition. And when you look inside, you see it's actually not true. It's an agenda to stop us doing the right thing and sticking to the European Green Deal. But that scientific knowledge is there to help us making the right decisions and speak about them correctly. That is what I want and hope from Europe for the Arctic.
Thank you, Antje. Excellent. Jérôme, how would you describe the spirit of scientific collaboration in the context of the Arctic? And as a chair for the Ice Memory Foundation, you have witnessed the rapid changes of glaciers in Svalbard. Would you like to tell us a bit about this?
Well, on your first question, I think the spirit is usually very good. For the simple reason that we work together in a very difficult environment, harsh environment, internationally, and we deal with topics which are of planetary relevance for the whole society. I give an example. I had the chance to be in the field with our Danish colleagues for a deep ice core drilling in Greenland. We were 700 kilometers away from Thule, remote camp, 14 nations together. We didn't feel as being Danish, as being from our own country. We are just a group of friends, scientists, internationally trying to answer to key scientific questions. On your second question, where first of all I would like to express my gratitude to His Serene Highness Prince Albert, because the Ice Memory Foundation and the Ice Memory Initiative was born thanks to him, and was actually supported by the Foundation of Prince Albert. The principle is to think about science on the long term. We ice core scientists know what we can learn from the ice, from this raw material, and we expect that in the future there will be much more ideas, much more technology, but the raw material will have disappeared because of global warming. So our role is to collect ice cores from key glaciers vanishing from the world and to deliver them in a sanctuary which will be a common good of humanity in Antarctica for the next generations of scientists. We've worked in Svalbard on the glacier Ortedal fauna in April 2023. It was a team of Italian and Norwegian scientists especially, and we're a big surprise. We went to drill in this glacier, 25 meters of depth, full of water. And we were lucky enough to move a bit the camp by about 150 meters and find a site where the glacier was still dry and we could drill down to bedrock. But it's to tell about the urgency of the situation.
Thank you, Jérôme. And Cornelius, you have been working with a lot with the UN Decade for Ocean Science, to work for the science we need for the ocean we want. And how can we, for a broader audience, help to draw further attention to activities such as ocean literacy or Arctic literacy? You can also tell us about what you're doing on board your sailing ships with buoys and such things.
Yeah, first of all, also maybe like some of you do not know Team Malizia. So we are like an offshore racing team. You just have seen Boris Herrmann. He's not only like a fantastic ocean racer who sails around the world non-stop solo for the first time in 2020, but also an ocean and climate ambassador. And that's why also Team Malizia, and also thanks to our partnership with the Foundation of Prince Albert and our founding member, the Yacht Club of Monaco, and some other partners, possible actually to conduct this mission to collect important ocean data from the remote parts of the world, mostly Antarctica, around the Antarctic. But this project really continued, and we are more than just a sailing team. We are all sort of like sea explorers. That's actually the name of our boat. So we want to explore the sea. We want to conduct ocean literacy. That means like shedding the light on the relationship between human mankind and the ocean, and the other way around. And this is also why we also engage in the UN Ocean Decade. The UN Ocean Decade is a program, framework program that has been put up by the member states of the UN, starting in 2021 and going until 2030. And here, under this mission, you just set the slogan, the science we need for the ocean we want. We want to really bridge the gap between the science and the science community that is sort of like a bit, a capsule sometimes, and really to translate this into a daily language and to bring it to the society and to engage the society and to basically put the awareness to the ocean, and especially Arctic and the Antarctic, because this is where we see on full speed in a time lapse how global warming is happening.
I would like to say that I witnessed how the team has opened a window to youth. I was at the Barcelona conference, and it was hundreds of young people, and surprisingly, especially also female ocean explorers that came and were apparently part of a learning that presence in the sea is part of the learning mechanism. And it is really amazing how these people who are living in the sea, experiencing the sea, can talk to young people and attract them to think about science and technology and about the presence at sea. So that is a magic moment it was for me to see that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Please, Cornelius, would you like to comment?
Yeah, especially that you just mentioned it, like the younger generation is really close to. We have a program, it's called My Ocean Challenge, and we want to, I just heard like the number actually we engaged since this program started in 2017, 2018. We have been in touch with like 70,000 kids around the world, and we approached the kids, especially in the age between 8 and 14. And really like translating also like science and ocean protection and bringing that to the schools and showing them actually our sports, because it happens on the water. It's fun. Our sports is fun. It's a competition. We just have seen it, and it's a bit tiring as well, of course, for the skipper. But it's like an amazing experiences, and that's what we want to drive. This is driving us as a team, because it's like emotional, and that's the energy we need to produce change and to protect our blue planet.
I also think that this is a fantastic example how data is used immediately, because when you deploy the buoy, you can have use of the data that the buoy catches for the further navigation of your sailing vessel. So you help both yourself, your competitors, because they also have access to the data, and the world. So what is the lifespan of this buoys? I read somewhere it was 700 days or so. Do the students follow the buoys, or?
Yes, so it's like everything is traceable. We not only have like these buoys that we throw overboard. Also Boris did that on his transatlantic race just now, a drifter buoy. And that's why also the link to the science community is so important, because they, of course, they give us these buoys, and we need more of that, actually. We need more data that we collect. And another instrument that we throw aboard is called an Argo float, which is like kind of like a diving buoy that goes really like deep down to 1,500 meters collects data goes up. So it's also like a vertical data collection. And on board of our boat, constantly measuring CO2 in the surface water, quite important indicator for ocean health, salinity and temperature. Yeah.
There's another fascinating theme, and that is the contact with mammals, marine mammals. So, of course, for sailing boats, it's essential to know when a whale comes up, because they don't want to run into it. It is dangerous for the crew and the whale. And so this idea that boats that become fast, especially the race sailing boats, but also all of our shipping industry, that they can learn how to sense the presence of whales early enough to circumvent any collision, that is essential. And so to work together with industry, but also sports, but also science, and we have this pleasure of meeting marine mammals because it's just fantastic, and they are becoming more again, thanks to protection. But then to also say the next threat is really collision, and we do something together against it. That's another big theme of the race sailors, but also really shipping industry and science together.
Maybe I can add that it's really fantastic to see these kind of teams, racing teams, helping science. And I think on the scientific side, part of our responsibility is to develop as well the new technologies, the new sensing technologies, allowing to get much more information on this environment, which is so poorly designed or understood so far. So I would say ships of opportunities, including racing ships, is really a fantastic tool we should make better profit of.
Yeah. Thank you, Jérôme, for this. I was actually thinking about putting a question to you, because for me as a scientist, my opinion is that it's extremely important that we have real-time data, because as we know, the climate is changing, we need to follow it. But as important is to have historic data, because if we don't know what was causing climate change in the past, we can hardly predict it in the future. So would you like to elaborate a bit about historic data, sediments or ice cores, or how important that is?
Yes, it's very true. It's fantastic that on the planet we have these archives which have been created in trees, in lake sediments, in marine sediments, in ice, in glaciers and so on. And they tell us a lot about our history. And it's kind of difficult to actually predict the future without fully understanding how the climate system especially works at different timescales. I will give one example based on Arctic ice core science I've been contributing to. This is from the Greenland ice cores that we knew that the so-called Atlantic meridional overturning circulation can change at dramatic timescales. We could show, for instance, during the last glaciation, which took place about 20,000 years before present to 110,000 years before present, that there were 25 events when the temperature dramatically decreased and increased, and we could actually quantify it to 15 degrees Celsius at the heart of Greenland within only 20 to 30 years. Can you think about it? And we got to learn about that from ice cores, and that tells us that we have to pay attention to what's going on today in the Atlantic Ocean, because there is a risk, significant risk, that in the future, even in a warmer world, actually this meridional overturning circulation would slow down and would very strongly affect the climate of Western Europe, including Scandinavia.
There's also fantastic examples from using photography or even paintings. From Svalbard, from Norwegian's International Research Station, there's a paper I can recommend to everyone looking up, where photography over decades was compiled and compared with modern technology. What is actually the retreat of the glaciers? What does it look like? What is the signature? How fast does it go? How fast is the melting? And so this comparison that tells us that our grandparents have lived in a different world, and we are there, and our grandchildren live in a different world again, that we can show that and preserve a reference of Earth we want to get back to with climate neutrality is really an important task that science has together with photographers and even artists sometimes.
So a final question or note from me is, it's a lot on the table how remote observations by satellites and Earth observation in general is helping us with data. But Antje, to you, my experience with the planning of our Swedish icebreaker Odin is that in the same amount as this kind of observations are increasing, there is a greater demand for vessels also to in situ verification of data. So how would you see the future of collecting climate data in the Arctic, perhaps in the Central Arctic Ocean?
It's true, because of the urgency of understanding and the mystery that Earth still has in stock for us to understand, for example, why do we have this jump in ocean temperature? I mean, 0.5 degrees in the Atlantic. If I wouldn't been asked as an oceanographer 10 years ago, I would have said, it's not possible. You can't have a jump in ocean temperature. Now we have it, and we have to explain it. Or the collapse of the sea ice in Antarctica. No one was predicting it that way, that it would all go in a number of 5 years. Of course, we want to plan bigger missions with more vessels, understanding the different scales that might explain these jumps, the nonlinearity of Earth system behavior. And presence at sea cannot be replaced so far by robots nor by remote sensing. It's about detailed measurements, sometimes on meter scales. What can we do? More collaboration, using every berth that we have, and again, partnership with private endeavors, with philanthropy. I don't know if you know this, but some of the big philanthropists who have research yachts, they have just formed a new ambition, the so-called Pink Flamingo, interesting story, to help programming science even better, to help us saving also energy by doing that, and offering more to the observation of planet Earth, and that's the right direction.
Thank you, Antje. Okay, maybe would you like to comment something, Jérôme or Cornelius, before we open up for the audience to spell questions? Jérôme?
Maybe on the last aspect that Antje addressed, I think if we can get more sailboats allowing us to conduct science, including in the Arctic, in a more environmental friendly way than a big icebreaker, using a lot of fuel every single day. We're not going to do the same science, but we can really enlarge the spectrum of science, especially in coastal regions where there are so many phenomena that we don't really understand today. And I would like to stress that actually Switzerland is going to contribute. Everybody knows TARA, TARA Foundation. Yes. We just got with the Forel Association in Switzerland, supported by philanthropy actually, a new sailboat. And I'm going to be on board next month. We go to Greenland. We work in 2 fjords, and it will be, I would say, interesting science with much more environmental friendly approach.
Thanks for mentioning TARA. Both TARA and Malizia could be followed in social media. Yeah. Cornelius?
Yeah, I mean, like with the sailing, you got me there. We just came actually from an event from the UN Ocean Decade in Barcelona, one of the first face-to-face meetings where we were like taking stock of the so far achieved goals of the Ocean Decade. And we launched, it was like the first time that we launched an event which was like on sailing and science, and how this collaboration can be also pushed to other disciplines in the sailing sports in general. And we collaborating already with the Ocean Race, that's the organization that is driving this. And I'm very proud to say that Team Malizia was one of the first teams in our boat class, in our discipline, to put an ocean pack instrument on board. And if we have like the entire fleet, which is like some sort of like 35 up to 40 boats, all going around Antarctica, we cover a lot of sea areas that are really unknown yet and still unknown to us. And this is where really like the racing teams can really contribute, and we would like to be that all the racing teams are becoming some sort of sea explorers. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, the problem is huge, but we are a lot of people who work together to try to understand them and do something about it. It's fantastic. The Arctic might seem far away, not for us being here, because we have been talking about the Arctic 2 days, but even for me as a Swede, the Arctic sometimes when I'm in the southern Sweden, when I talk to people, it's far away. But it's, as we know, affecting our daily life, the weather in our backyard, and so a lot of things. So how would you, if you could describe the influence of the Arctic to your neighbor, how would you do that? Yeah.
Well, I think living now in Switzerland, I can take the example of weather patterns. Yes. We have this kind of cold fronts or warm fronts coming up more frequently, and that's probably in part related with changes in the jet stream, separating the Arctic atmosphere from the temperate atmosphere, and that shows us that something is going on. So, you know, it seems far away, as you said, the Arctic, but even if you live in Switzerland, in the middle of the Alps, Swiss Alps, I mean, you are concerned by what's going on in the Arctic just by the weather you experience.
Yeah.
For me, it's often the surprise that people don't know how much they use of the Arctic. So it is a mystery to many people that much of the European gas we use or have used is from the Arctic, that much of the fish we eat is from the Arctic. And so as customers, we often don't see that. It's not printed on something we eat or use, that the Arctic is actually exporting goods, and that we are connected thereby, that we are part of this tradition, that we get fed by the Arctic. And we should really be aware that we have to give something back.
Yeah. Thank you, Antje. We are in a hurry, not only the climate, but also this panel is in a hurry. We are on overtime, 0 time, so minus time. So Cornelius, a quick comment from you.
Yeah, well, maybe taking again like my hat from the committee for the Ocean Decade. And by the way, you're also a member of the committee. Yeah? It was not here displayed on the slide. So I'm really proud to see more of these committees that are steering the regional and local projects around the world, growing, mushrooming around the world. And I'm very proud to see also that especially the European countries are really well represented with over 12 out of 38 at the moment, 38 national committees, and obviously also one in Greenland and in Russia, the Russian Federation as well. So my wish list is a bit like that we really overcome, and this is also what His Highness was addressing, really overcome these geopolitical fights, the wars, come together where we really need to put, our energy in. And this is why these national committees are so important to build the bridge and to really spread the word. And the Arctic is an ocean in the end, right? It's water. So obviously this is then close to our heart. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.